Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Janakalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Gurum Brahma Vidparam Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambujanmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaiga Karmani. Wonderful. Let's read from verse 20 to 23. Vrikshasya swagato bhedaha patra pushpa phaladibihi vrikshantarat sajatiyaha jatiyashiladitaha tatha sadvastu no bheda trayam praptam nivaryate ऐक्यावधारणद्वैता प्रतिषेधैस्त्रिभिः क्रमात् सतो नावयवाशङ्ख्या तदंशस्यानिरूपणात् नामरूपेण तस्यांशौ तयोरद्याप्यनुद्भवात् नामरूपोद्भवस्यैव सृष्टित्वात् सृष्टितः पुरा न तयोरुद्भवस्तस्मात् निरंशं सद्यथा वियत्. So we are in Panchadashi now, and this topic is going on of these three words, ekam, eva, advitiyam. Ekam means one, eva means alone, advitiyam, non-dual or without a second. And so when we see these words, we might think that there's a repetition in the Upanishad. Why is it saying one alone without a second? Isn't it the same thing? Isn't it repetitious? Well, it is said that in the world, there's three kinds of differences. Swagata bheda means differences within something. Then sajatiya bheda, differences within the same species. And vijatiya, differences between different species. So each word actually negates each difference. So eka negates swagata bheda, or difference in the same species. Eva, the word alone, negates differences within the same species. And advitiyam, non-dual, negates differences between different species. And so we talked about the first bheda, the first difference. Bheda means difference, which is swagata, difference within. So internal differences, we can say. And we said that Sat doesn't have these eternal differences. Existence doesn't have eternal differences because existence doesn't have properties. And something that has properties such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, only something that has these properties actually have distinctions, right? When there is sound, there is parts. This part is a loud sound, this part is a soft sound. When there is form, there's distinctions. This part is blue, this part is yellow. So when something has properties, it has distinctions. But Sat, or existence, doesn't have properties, therefore it doesn't have any distinctions. Then one might say, because the Shruti statement was, Sadeva Somya idam agra asid. Existence alone was before creation. What about name and form? Isn't name and form an internal difference in Sat? Isn't name and form within existence itself? So very beautifully in verse 22, it says, name and form cannot be parts of existence because even now they are not there. They are an apparent existence. They are an apparent existence because they appear and disappear. So therefore, even now, name and form are not really there. They cannot be counted as absolute reality. So they cannot be a part of existence. Further, in verse 23, it says, we're talking about an existence that appeared before creation. And creation, the definition of creation is the manifestation of names and forms. So if we're talking about existence before creation, which is a manifestation of names and forms, how can name and form be part of that existence? It cannot, right? So therefore, name and form is not part of that existence. And existence is like space. So existence is like space, or what we call akasha. How space is partless, if space can be partless, what to talk about that existence? It also can be partless. It must be partless, right? So this is where we stopped. So now the thought flow is going to be in verse 24, he's going to talk about how there are no differences within the same species. In verse 25, how there's no difference between another species, to really just drive home this point. So let us read verse 24. Sadantaram sajatiyam, sadantaram sajatiyam, navai lakshanyavarjanat, navai lakshanyavarjanat, namarupopadibedam, namarupopadibedam, vina naiva sato bhida, vina naiva sato bhida. Sadantaram sajatiyam, navai lakshanyavarjanat, namarupopadibedam, vina naiva sato bhida. So what does this verse say? Sad antaram. Sad means existence. Sat. Antaram. Other than sat, sajatiyam, the difference between a species other than sat, navai lakshanya varjanat. It does not exist because there's nothing similar to sat. So there's no similar difference to sat. There's no other species sat or existence because nothing else exists but sat. But what about names and forms? Nama rupo padi bhedam. Names and forms are just these conditionings. Vina naiva sato bheda. In that existence, there is no such distinction. So let's read the explanation and then I'll go a little deeper. The difference between objects of the same class can have no reference to sat, for nothing else exists. One object differs from another on account of its name and form, whereas Brahman is absolutely without name and form. So let's think about this, right? What is the counter thought for this? People can say that there's different kinds of existence. Okay, so maybe I'll have okay, here. So let's say this is a pouch existence. This is a bottle existence. And this is a paper holder existence, book holder. So people might think that, hey, there's different kinds of existence. The pouch existence, bottle existence, and so forth. But when we really look at these things, right, the existence of this, existence is not a property. It's not a property of this because actually this is, it's what we call, it has borrowed existence. This pouch has borrowed existence. This bottle has borrowed existence. What do we mean by borrowed existence? It's very simple. Just think about this, that you're cooking on the stove and you have a cold potato. You're cooking on the stove, you have a cold potato. When you put it in the boiling water, it becomes a hot potato. And then after you finish cooking it, you take it out, it's warm, and then again it becomes cold, right? So before the potato was cold, then when you put it in, it became hot, and you take it out, again after some time, it's cold. So what are we saying about this potato? This potato has borrowed heat. Heat is not its intrinsic nature. Therefore, it only has borrowed heat. Similarly, when you take something like this object, like this piece of cloth, before it was not there, right? Before it was not there, and after some time, it will not be there. Right now, it exists. Why does it exist now? It's borrowing existence. Before this, it's not there. And after this, it's also not going to be there, right? Because this will decompose. So it's borrowing existence. At some points, it's not existent, and it is borrowing existence. So because it is borrowing existence, existence cannot be its property. Existence must be the substratum of it. Now, even if you look at this bottle, before it was non-existent, now it's borrowing existence, and after that, again, it will be non-existent. So because it's existent only for a while, that means existence is not its intrinsic nature. It's just borrowing it. So when we talk about names and forms in the entire world, they're just borrowing existence. They're just borrowing existence because they gain existence and then they lose existence. They gain existence and they lose existence. So existence is not their intrinsic nature. And so therefore, if someone were to say, well, maybe there's different kinds of existence, it doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold water because existence cannot be a property of anything. It is actually the substratum of everything. So what does that tell us? That tells us actually something so deep, that this body existence, this Shubhani existence, this body, right? This body, name and form, is actually what we call something as borrowed existence. It has borrowed existence, right? So Oscar's body mind has borrowed existence. Swayamji's body mind has borrowed existence. So all of these are just things that have borrowed existence. They are not existing on their own right. They will come and they will go. So there is really, we cannot distinguish human existence, animal existence, your existence, my existence. There just is existence. There just is existence. And everything appears in that existence. Everything appears and it disappears in that existence. So therefore, there is no sajatiya, there is no other kind of existence, because it is not a property. So this is clear. So nama, rupa are their names and forms, they're just appearances because they have borrowed existence. They cannot exist in their own right. Now, someone might ask, well, okay, so there's no internal differences. There's no difference in the same species. What about, is there something other than existence? Is there something other than existence that could be different from it, or what we call vijatiya bheda? So let's look at verse number 25. Vijatiya manasattu, vijatiya masattatu, vijatiya masattatu, na kalvastiti gamyate, न खल्वस्तीति गम्यते नास्यातः प्रतियोगित्वं नास्यातः प्रतियोगित्वं विजातीयाद्भिदा कुतः विजातीयाद्भिदा कुतः विजातीयमसत्तत्तु न खल्वस्तीति गम्यते नास्यातः प्रतियोगित्वं जातीयाद्भिदा कुतः. So vijatiyam, right? So vijatiyam, so the first word is vijatiyam, means something that is different from sat. Could there be anything different from sat or existence? What would that be? Asat. That would be asat or non-existence. Non-existence is the only thing that can be different from existence, right? So vijatiyam asat. Non-existence is different from existence, but non-existence doesn't exist. Nakalu astiti gamyate. It doesn't exist, right? So na asya ataha pratiyogitvam. Therefore, non-existence cannot be contrary to existence. Vijatiyad bhida kutaha. So how can there be any different species other than existence? So you get this argument that the different, the third kind of difference is what we call vijatiya bheda, a different species. What is different from existence? Non-existence. But the thing is, non-existence doesn't exist. So therefore, there is nothing different to existence. There's nothing different to existence. So existence has no difference with another species. And furthermore, if we want to sort of, pratiyogi entails comparing existence with something else. If we want to compare existence to something else, we'll have to establish its existence. But we cannot establish the existence of non-existence, right? So this again doesn't hold water. And further, if we say that non-existence is, right? That's also a contrary notion. So that non-existence is opposed to existence, so it doesn't exist, right? But if we say non-existence is, that's also contrary, right? It doesn't exist. So how is non-existence is? So therefore, there is no vijatiya bheda. So now, very, very clearly, he says, now we're in verse 26, he establishes that this is one reality without one alone without a second. So let's read that, verse 26. Ekamevadvitiyam sat Ekamevadvitiyam sat Siddhamatra tu kechana Siddhamatra tu kechana Vihvala sadevedam Purasidityavarnayan Ekamevadvitiyam sat Siddhamatra tu kechana Vihvala sadevedam Purasidityavarnayan. So now, what is he saying? Siddham. Siddham, it is established. By whatever we have studied so far, it is established that that's sat, existence. Sometimes it's sat, sometimes it's sad. It's because of Sanskrit sandhi. But understand that it's the same thing. So that existence is established as eka, one, eva, alone, advitiya, without a second, without anything else. That existence has been established. So what now? Now he's established the whole Upanishad statement Now what? He says, but kechana. He says, some people, vihwalaha. Vihwalaha means who are delirious. That's the meaning, delirious. Asad eva idam. They think that asad eva idam purasi. The world, before creation, they think that it was asat, or non-existence. So there are some who say that before creation, there was only non-existence. Asad eva idam. Non-existence alone was purasi iti avarnayan. So they say that just non-existence. So now we're thinking, okay, now how would they say that, right? So again, here in the Chandogya Upanishad, this happens, where there are some people who say non-existence alone was, and this whole thing is non-existence. Now, this is just to give you what's going to come. There's going to be some verses about how people think that this reality is non-existent. Now, it says in the book, if you read the book, it's by, they say it's the Madhyamikas or the Shunyavadis or the Buddhist schools. But there are many, many opinions about what the Buddhists think or think the reality to be. So it is said at one point in time that Buddha at the time of enlightenment was quiet, he was silent. And when somebody asked him, what is this reality, right? Is there such a reality? And he stayed silent. So some people thought that there is no such reality. But some people thought that this reality cannot be described in words. There is reality, but it cannot be described in words. So there are many, many interpretations of what the Buddhist school really think. So for the purposes of this, we're just going to talk about it as people who think that non-existence is a reality, because I have not studied the Buddhist school of philosophy, and I don't want to misquote or misinterpret any of their scriptures. They could be really, really amazing for all that we know. So I'll just refer to those who think non-existence, meaning the opposite of existence, was the origin of it. Okay? So here, now those who think that non-existence alone was, again, here, there's two things. The first thing is, if non-existence alone was before creation, then how is it that everything exists, right? Everything is, this pouch is, this bottle is, this book holder is. So it must mean that the basis of everything is existence. We don't say that this book holder is not, or this pouch is not, right? Or this bottle is not. We say everything is. So therefore, isness or existence must be the basis. And if we break everything down, so this is something that everybody's still puzzled about, is what is the minutest particle? How far can we go? How far can we break everything down? And it will go into so many things. It will go into, according to our Upanishads, it will go into earth. It will go into, earth, and then fire, earth, water, fire, air, space, etc. But in the field of science, you'll have atoms, you'll have particles, you'll have quarks, you'll have all kinds of things. And everyone's trying to see how much can we break this substance down. And what our Shruti says, what our Upanishad say is, you can keep breaking things down. You can keep breaking things down, but at the end of the day, what will we come to is existence. We will come to existence. We break everything down, you will find only there is existence. We break ourselves down. We break our body, our mind, our intellect. We break all of our notions down. What do we ultimately come to? existence. So in the same way, if we break this entire world down, what is that we will come to? It is existence alone. It's existence alone. So here it said that it is existence. Sad eva idam. But some people feel it's non-existence. And as I said, it's vadato vyaghata dosha. If we say that non-existence exists, that is a contradictory statement, right? Non-existence exists. So that also doesn't hold water for these reasons. But some people have this notion that everything comes from non-existence. Now, what happens? Why is this happening? Why would someone think that it comes from non-existence? Why? What are the reasons why the mind would think this way? So let us see now verse number 27. Magnasya yatha kshani. Magnasya yatha kshani. Vifvalani tathasya dhihi. Vifvalani tathasya dhihi. Akhandekarasam shrutva. Akhandekarasam shrutva. Nishprachara bibhetyataha. Nishprachara bibhetyataha. Magnasyabdhau yatha kshani. Vihvalani tathasya dhihi. Akhandekarasam shrutva. Nishprachara bibhetyataha. Why are we so afraid of getting into existence? Why? It says, now just imagine this picture. Magnasya, one who is drowning, abdhau, in a sea. Imagine one who is drowning in a sea, right? Yathakshani vivvalani. And yathakshani means just like their senses, all their senses are vivvalani, they're bewildered. Means they don't know what's going on, they don't know what's happening. Someone's drowning in this ocean, in this indivisible, vast ocean, and they don't know what's going on. Tatha, in the same way, asya, of this person, dihi, the intellect, shrutva, after having heard of akhandekarasam, this indivisible self, after having heard of his indivisible self, nishprachara, they're just like stunned. They come to a dead end. They don't know what to do. Then bibheti, ataha bibheti, and fear arises. So, as a man who has fallen into the sea is bewildered, loses the power of exercising his senses, so they too become afraid and nervous when they hear the reality as one only without parts. So what happens here is there is fear. This is really, this is really something we can think about, is that people are afraid of what they can't comprehend. Everything in this world has a foothold. Either we can see something, we can hear something, we can taste something, and we feel okay, we can grasp it. Or even if we can think about it, we feel like we can grasp it. So when we can grasp it in some way, we feel comfortable. We feel comfortable because I can grasp this reality. I can understand this reality. But to enter into the field of the unknown, people are afraid, what's beyond it? What could be beyond it? And to think that there is this deep, deep, pure existence, what is that? And what could that existence be? Because the Upanishads say, asthulam arasvam, it's not thick, it's not thin, it's not long, it's not short. Neti, it's not this, it's not this, it's not the body, it's not the mind. all of these negations, what could that be? And sometimes the mind actually is so afraid to just enter into that domain. It's afraid to lose the individuality. So great thinkers, they don't want to lose themselves. They don't want to lose the ego, the individuality in this reality, not realizing that by losing individuality, we realize our infinity. By losing individuality, we realize our infinity, but people are afraid to do that, afraid to let the mind dissolve. Once, Swami Vivekananda was asked by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, there's a pot of immortality there. And if you're a bee and there's a pot of immortality, how would you drink that immortality? And he said, I would sip the sides of the pot. And then Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, wouldn't you just go in? He said, no, I might die. But Sri Ramakrishna said, but it's immortality. It's immortality, right? And so that's what we are. When we're kind of thinking about this existence, this reality, we're afraid and we're just sipping on the sides. But what our Upanishads are saying, just drown it, dissolve it, lose yourself in it, and realize. But fear arises. There's that pita. And this is why people don't want to go into that unknown territory. If it's something my mind can't conceive, it must not be there. This is what we think. If it's something that I cannot think of, it must not be there. But we fail to shut everything down and see what actually is. And he brings a very good point that not only are they afraid, but even Saguna Upasakas sometimes are afraid. Saguna Upasakas means those who worship Brahman with form, even they're afraid. Even they're afraid. This comes in verse number 20. Gauracharya nirvikalpe, Gauracharya nirvikalpe, Samadhavanya yoginam, Samadhavanya yoginam, Sakara brahmanishtanam, Sakara brahmanishtanam, Atyantam bhayamuchire, Atyantam bhayamuchire, Gauracharya nirvikalpe, Samadhavanya yogina, Sakara brahmanishtanam, Atyantam bhayamuchire. What happens here? Gauracharyaha. Here it's said in plural out of respect. Gauracharyaha uchire. Gaudapadacharya, he speaks. Gaudapada is the great grand guru of Adi Shankaracharya. So we have Govindapada, then Gaudapada, the one who's written the Karikas of Mandukya Upanishad. He says that in that Nirvikalpa Samadhi, especially in that state, where there's no more meditator, meditated, and meditated. Savikalpa means with all of these distinctions. There's a meditator, meditating, and meditated, meditating on something. There's all these distinctions. But in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no distinction. The self alone is, the mind becomes extremely, extremely, extremely subtle. Self alone is. And so he says, Yoginam, those who worship Sakara Brahmanishta, those who are rooted in this Brahman, Nishta, in this Brahman, Sakara, with form, of those yogis who are rooted in Brahman with form, Atyantam Bhayam, they are scared. So this also happens, this fear not only arises because we are unable to conceive of that existence, but it also arises because we are afraid to let go of our current faith and belief. So those who are worshiping God with form, even those who know the truth, they also worship with form. They also do upasana, but they understand that this God is pure awareness and pure consciousness. But there are certain schools or there are certain upasakas that stay just in the realm of the form. And when they stay just in the realm of the form, they become afraid to let go of it. Right? The idea is that from the form, we go to the formless. They're afraid to let go of it, so that even in the mind, when their contemplation is going on and they're contemplating on that form, when the mind becomes so silent and still, they bring the form back because they're afraid to lose that. They want to keep that duality of worshipper and the worshipped, or that triad, worshipper, worshipped, and the worship, because they can hold it, they can see it, they can feel it, they can touch it. But the minute you tell them to let go, they're afraid. Afraid because what will happen? So here also is where many seekers get stuck. Nobody's asking us to let go of God. What we're asking is to let go of the limited notion of God. And this is often misunderstood. We're asking to let go of the limited notion of God, that God is not only restricted to that form, that God is actually all-pervading, that all-pervading awareness, that all-pervading existence, that all-pervading being. Expand to that. Expand to that. Nobody's asking you to let go of God. We're asking to let go of the limited God. That is what we're asking. And so this is sometimes what happens, and this is why fear arises. Fear arises in this. And it is natural for fear to rise because it's unknown territory, right? What is that like? What does that really mean? Once in Puja Gurudev's life, Swami Chinmayaji's life, there was one devotee, and she had a very nice Krishna idol, and she would carry it with her all the time. And she was traveling with Gurudev, Swami Chinmayaji. And so she was traveling with him. At one point, and every day, she used to worship that idol. Every day, at one point, she would bathe it also in the Ganga when they were by the river Ganga. So one time she lost the idol. And she went to Gurudev and she felt so bad and so sad because that's something that she kept with her. All the time, that's something that she kept close to her heart. And he just looked at her. He said, now from the form, go to the formless. Go to the formless. So that is the significance in our Sanatana Dharma. Even when we do, if you really think deeply about our culture, especially when we do Ganesh Chaturthi, we celebrate the birthday of Sri Ganesha. And we make Ganeshas, or we keep Ganesha in the house. And then at the end, what do? We dissolve that Ganesha in water. So these festivals are just a simple way of saying, worship the form, but know that the form is really formless. This is what he's saying. Where does he say this? Where does he say this? So now we will read verse number 29. Asparsha yogo namesha. Asparsha yogo namesha. Durdarsha sarva yogi bihi. Durdarsha sarva yogi bihi. Yogino bhibhyati yasmat. Yogino bhibhyati yasmat. Abhaye Bhayadarshinaha, Abhaye Bhayadarshinaha, Sparshayogo Namaisha, Durdarsha Sarvayogibihi, Yogino Bibyati Yasmat, Abhaye Bhayadarshinaha. This is one of my favorite karikas in Mandukya. He says that Asparsha Yoga Esha. This is Asparsha Yoga, means this is that yoga, that union with the ungraspable, the uncontactable. There's no even union actually, but this Brahman is Asparsha. You can't contact, you can't grasp, you can't touch Brahman. And this Asparsha Yoga, Durdarsha, it is very, very difficult to grasp. It's very difficult to grasp. Sarva yogi bihi, by all the yogis. Which yogis? The ones who are worshipping Brahman with form, or the ones who are afraid to kind of go beyond their minds and intellects. For these yogis, it's very durdarsha, very hard. And ironically, yoginaha bibhyati hyasmat. The yogins or the yogis are afraid of that which is the source of fearlessness. Abhaye, and that which is fearless, they are afraid. Abhaye bhayadarshinaha. This identification with the ungraspable reality is difficult to achieve. They are indeed seeing fear in the fearless. So what does this mean? So here, so I can read a little bit of it. Yeah, very nice. So here, what is, we'll go, maybe I'll do a little bit today and we'll see the rest next time. But Asparsha Yoga, Sparsha literally means no contact, right? No contact. Asparsha Yoga Nam, Sarva Sambandha Kya Sparsha Varjitatvat Asparsha Yoga. Means there is no relation. Brahman is Asparsha, contactless, traceless. Now you have that contactless credit card, right? You don't need to touch it. You just go like that, right? Brahman is like that, Asparsha. Or now you have that face identification. You don't need to touch anything. So even the world is thinking about Brahman in some way or the other, maybe, but doesn't have any relationship. Brahman doesn't have any relationship with the body, the mind, thoughts, no relationship with anything whatsoever. Contactless, untouched. So even this body, Brahman has no relationship with it. Even whatever's going on in my mind, Brahman has no relationship. Whatever I'm feeling, no relationship. Asparsha, untouched. Just like the snake has no relationship with the rope. No relationship. The mirage water has no relationship with the desert. Brahman has no relationship with these upadhis, these conditionings, or even the world. Sparsha. And then why is it durdarsha? Why is this very, very hard to get? Because it is so incredibly subtle. It's so incredibly subtle that even people who listen to it and even people who reflect upon it still are not able to get it, right? We saw in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, Ashcharyavat Pashyati Kashchirena. It's a wonder. Some see it, some listen to it, but still don't get it. And the one who gets it is also a wonder, how did they get it? Right? So Durdarsha, it's so subtle, it's beyond the mind and senses. So it's very difficult to comprehend this. Now, why is there fear? Why is there fear here? Because how there's this wonder, how is it that this individuality is false? How is it that everything that I thought I was, My entire personality from my birth to now, all my relationships, how is that it's false? How is that this entire world of names and forms is just an appearance in my awareness? How is that like that? And how is it that actually, in all actuality, I am already Brahman? I actually don't need to do anything to be Brahman. We feel we need to practice Vedanta because we think Vedanta is a theory. But I am already Brahman. So I'm afraid because how am I already Brahman? What do I need to do now? Does that mean I don't need to do anything? What will I do if there's nothing I need to do? So there's a fear. What will I do if there's nothing I need to do? I'm already the self. What do I do with myself? What do I do with this knowing that everything is false? How do I interact with this world? I'm afraid. I'm scared. What does this all mean? So this kind of acceptance of the falsity of these conditionings, this personality, this world, the falsity of even our sadhana at a very deep level. We should still do sadhana, but the falsity that even the sadhana that we do doesn't even touch Brahman, because nothing touches Brahman. Nothing can improve Brahman. Right? This is kind of startling. This is kind of hard to digest, hard to take. And the irony is, Brahman is fearlessness. We're afraid of that fearlessness. We're afraid of Brahman, which is the abode of fearlessness. In Brahman, everything is just as it is. It's just pure awareness. It's oneness. There's oneness with all beings. So what can we be afraid of? Who can be afraid of who? In that abode of fearlessness, we're afraid. It's very sad. So Gaudapada says, we keep remembering asparsha. Nothing can touch Brahman. No contact with Brahman. Nothing can increase Brahman. Nakarmana no kaniyan. Nothing can increase Brahman. Nothing can make Brahman grow. Nothing can make Brahman shrink. Nothing can touch it. It just is. So this is the gist of that verse 29. So we will stop here. I think this is a nice place to stop. We'll continue next week. Right? Okay, I'll pause here and we'll do some questions or